Welcome. You've arrived at this quiet moment, a pause in the rhythm of your day. As you settle in, let your body soften, let your thoughts slow, letting the busyness fade, little by little. Tonight, we'll take a slow journey north, to the vast, frozen Arctic. Out here, the world stretches wide and silent, blanketed in snow and shadow. Temperatures can drop so low that the air itself seems to bite. But even here, families lived with warmth, care, and remarkable ingenuity. They built shelters from snow, layered their clothing with precision, and created spaces where sleep and comfort could exist, even in the harshest cold. Over the next while, we'll move gently through their story. We'll notice how igloos held heat, how layers of fur trapped warmth, and how generations passed down the knowledge that allowed life to flourish in this frozen world. So breathe deeply, let yourself relax, and let the quiet story of Arctic survival unfold. Across the vast Arctic territories of Alaska, northern Canada, and Greenland, autumn brings a familiar transformation. The sun traces lower arcs across the sky with each passing day. Temperatures drop steadily below freezing, ice begins to form along shorelines, and snow accumulates in deepening drifts. For the Inuit communities scattered across this immense polar landscape, these changes signal the approach of the polar night months, when the sun will disappear entirely below the horizon, leaving the world suspended in an extended twilight. This is not the gradual sunset of temperate climates. The polar night arrives with astronomical precision, plunging entire regions into a blue-grey luminescence that will persist for weeks or months. The transition occurs differently across the Arctic. In the northernmost settlements, the sun vanishes in late October and does not return until February. Further south, the polar night lasts only a few weeks, but even these shorter periods demand careful preparation and adaptation. During this time, communities must survive on the preparations they have made and the knowledge passed down through countless generations. The approaching darkness is not feared but anticipated, for winter represents a time of rest, storytelling, and the deepening of social bonds that sustain Arctic life. Families begin to gather the materials and provisions that will carry them through the months ahead. Tools are sharpened and repaired, clothing is mended and reinforced. Food stores are organized and protected from scavenging animals. The psychological preparation is equally important. The polar night tests not only physical endurance but mental resilience. Communities that have thrived in the Arctic for thousands of years have developed cultural practices specifically designed to maintain psychological well-being during the months of darkness. These traditions acknowledge the challenges of winter while celebrating its unique opportunities for rest, reflection, and community bonding. The Inuit understanding of snow transcends simple observation. Where others might see only white precipitation, experienced Arctic dwellers recognize dozens of distinct types, each with specific properties and uses. This knowledge forms the foundation of winter survival, for snow will become both building material and insulation, pathway and obstacle, protection and potential danger. Fresh snow falls in delicate crystals that trap vast amounts of air between their intricate structures. Each snowflake forms around microscopic particles in the atmosphere, creating complex geometric patterns that interlock when they land. The air trapped between these crystals can comprise up to 95% of fresh snow's volume. This characteristic makes new snow an excellent insulator, but a poor building material, as it lacks the structural integrity needed for construction. Wind-driven snow undergoes a transformation that makes it ideal for building. As wind moves snow across the landscape, the delicate crystal structures break apart and compact into dense, uniform layers. This wind-packed snow, known as pukak, develops a consistency similar to compressed foam. It can be cut into precise blocks that hold their shape and support considerable weight. Experienced builders can identify suitable snow by its sound when stepped on, its resistance to a knife blade, and the way light reflects from its surface. The aging process further modifies snow's properties. Old snow that has survived multiple freeze-thaw cycles develops a granular structure quite different from fresh precipitation. The original crystal shapes disappear, replaced by rounded ice pellets separated by air pockets. This metamorphosis creates snow with different thermal properties and structural characteristics. Understanding these changes allows Arctic dwellers to select the right type of snow for specific applications. Temperature affects snow behavior in predictable ways. Extremely cold snow remains loose and powdery, difficult to compact into stable blocks. Snow near the melting point becomes wet and heavy, losing its insulating properties but gaining the ability to form strong bonds when refrozen. The optimal temperature range for igloo construction falls between -10 and -30 degrees Fahrenheit, where snow maintains both structural integrity and good insulating properties. This taxonomic knowledge extends beyond simple categorization. Experienced Arctic residents understand how different snow types layer in natural deposits. Wind patterns create predictable arrangements of snow types across the landscape. Drifts form with dense windward faces and looser leeward slopes. Sheltered areas accumulate fine, powdery snow, while exposed ridges develop hard, crusty surfaces. Reading these patterns allows hunters and travelers to predict snow conditions and locate suitable material for construction. Before the polar night settles fully over the land, communities intensify their hunting efforts to gather the materials that will sustain life through winter. These final expeditions seek not only food but the specific resources needed to create warmth and shelter in the months ahead. Every successful hunt contributes essential elements to the complex system of Arctic survival. Seals provide rendered blubber that burns steadily in soapstone lamps, offering both heat and light during the darkest months. A single seal can yield several gallons of oil, enough to fuel a family's lamp for weeks. The rendering process involves cutting blubber into small pieces and allowing body heat, or gentle warming, to separate the oil from tissue. This oil burns with a steady, smokeless flame that produces consistent heat without the choking smoke that would make enclosed spaces uninhabitable. Seal hides serve equally important purposes. Processed and sewn with meticulous care, they create waterproof outer garments and boot soles that remain flexible in extreme cold. The skin of bearded seals proves particularly valuable for boot soles, as it develops a tough, durable texture that resists wear from ice and frozen ground. Seal intestines, cleaned and treated, become waterproof containers and even translucent window coverings that allow light into shelters while keeping out wind and snow. Caribou supply the warmest fur available in the Arctic. Each caribou hair contains a hollow core filled with air, creating thousands of tiny insulation chambers within a single hide. The density of this fur varies seasonally, with winter coats developing the thickest, most insulating properties. Caribou taken in late autumn provide the premium pelts used for inner clothing layers and sleeping robes. The hollow structure of caribou hair makes these furs remarkably light for their warmth, allowing Arctic dwellers to wear substantial insulation without being burdened by excessive weight. Whale hunting, when successful, yields vast quantities of blubber for fuel and muktuk for nutrition. A single whale can provide enough oil to sustain an entire community through winter. The blubber of different whale species varies in quality and burning characteristics. Bowhead whale blubber burns with exceptional clarity and produces minimal smoke, making it the preferred fuel for indoor lamps. The thick skin and attached blubber layer, known as muktuk, provides essential vitamins and nutrients unavailable from other Arctic sources. These hunting expeditions require careful planning and considerable risk. Ice conditions become increasingly dangerous as winter approaches. Leads of open water that provide access to marine mammals can freeze suddenly, trapping hunters far from shore. Weather patterns grow more unpredictable, with storms developing rapidly and lasting for days. Despite these dangers, The final hunts remain essential for winter survival, as they provide the fuel, food, and materials that sustain life during the months when hunting becomes impossible. The processing and preservation of hunted animals follows time-tested methods that maximize the utility of every part. Nothing is wasted in an environment where resources are scarce and survival depends on efficiency. Meat is cut into strips and dried or frozen for long-term storage. Bones become tools, needles, and structural elements. Sinew provides thread for sewing waterproof seams. Even blood is preserved and used to create nutritious soups that help maintain health during the lean winter months. The tools used for Arctic survival represent centuries of refinement and adaptation to specific environmental challenges. Each implement serves multiple purposes and is crafted from materials available in the harsh polar environment. The creation and maintenance of these tools requires knowledge passed down through generations, as the difference between life and death often depends on having the right implement at the critical moment. The snow knife, or panna, stands as perhaps the most essential tool for winter survival. Traditionally carved from bone or ivory, these knives feature long, thin blades designed specifically for cutting snow blocks. The blade's length, typically 18 to 24 inches, allows the user to cut through thick layers of packed snow in single, smooth strokes. The slight curve of the blade helps guide cuts and prevents the knife from binding in dense snow. Modern versions may use metal, but many Arctic residents still prefer bone or ivory for their traditional working properties and resistance to extreme cold. The soapstone lamp, or quillik, represents sophisticated technology disguised as simple craft. These lamps are carved from soft soapstone that can be shaped with bone or antler tools. The shallow crescent-shaped bowl holds rendered blubber oil, while a rim around the edge provides a stable platform for the moss wick. The stone's thermal properties allow it to absorb and radiate heat evenly, creating a stable burning platform that won't crack from rapid temperature changes. The size and shape of different lamps are carefully calculated to provide the right amount of heat for specific spaces and fuel consumption rates. Needles made from bone, ivory, or bird bones enable the precise sewing required for waterproof clothing and gear. These needles must be incredibly sharp and smooth to penetrate tough hide without tearing. The eye of the needle is often reinforced with careful shaping to prevent the sinew thread from cutting through under tension. Different needle sizes serve different purposes, from heavy structural sewing to delicate detail work on clothing items. Sinew thread, processed from the back tendons of caribou or other large animals, provides the strongest and most weather-resistant sewing material available in the Arctic. The processing involves careful cleaning, drying, and splitting of tendons into fine threads. When moistened, sinew becomes pliable and easy to work with. As it dries, it shrinks and tightens, creating incredibly strong, waterproof seams that can withstand the stress of Arctic conditions. Knives and scrapers made from stone, bone, or metal serve essential roles in food preparation and hide processing. These tools must maintain sharp edges in extreme cold, where metal becomes brittle and prone to breaking. The handles are often wrapped with sinew or fur to prevent the user's skin from freezing to the metal surface. Different blade shapes serve specific purposes: broad scrapers for cleaning hides, narrow knives for detailed cutting work, and specialized tools for processing different types of materials. Fire-making equipment requires special consideration in Arctic conditions. Traditional methods involve striking flint or pyrite against steel to create sparks that ignite tinder made from dried fungus, moss, or shredded bark. The tinder must be kept absolutely dry, often stored in waterproof containers made from animal bladders or carved wood. Backup fire-starting materials are essential, as the loss of fire-making capability in Arctic conditions can be fatal. Containers carved from wood, bone, or made from animal hides serve countless purposes in Arctic life. Water containers must be designed to prevent freezing while allowing access to their contents, Food storage containers protect valuable provisions from scavenging animals and preserve them through the winter months. These containers often feature intricate designs that reflect both functional requirements and cultural artistic traditions. The moment when the sun disappears below the horizon marks a profound transition in Arctic life. This astronomical event occurs with precise timing, determined by latitude and the Earth's axial tilt. For communities in the high Arctic, the sun's departure in late October signals the beginning of months when artificial light and stored energy must sustain all human activity. The polar night does not bring complete darkness. Instead, the world enters a prolonged twilight, illuminated by reflected sunlight, moonlight, and the aurora borealis. This ethereal lighting creates a landscape painted in subtle shades of blue, purple, and grey. Snow and ice reflect and amplify available light, creating a luminous environment that allows limited outdoor activity even during the darkest periods. The quality of light changes throughout the polar night. During the deepest winter months, the sun remains far below the horizon, creating only the faintest glow along the southern sky at midday. As winter progresses towards spring, this glow strengthens and extends higher into the sky, creating longer periods of useful twilight. These subtle changes help Arctic residents maintain some connection to natural circadian rhythms, despite the absence of traditional day-night cycles. Moon phases become critically important during the polar night. The full moon, especially when combined with snow cover, can provide enough illumination for extended outdoor activities. Hunting, travel, and other essential tasks are often timed to coincide with favorable moon phases. The position of the moon in the sky also helps with navigation and timekeeping during periods when other celestial references are unavailable. The aurora borealis, or northern lights, provides another source of illumination during the polar night. These ethereal displays result from solar particles interacting with Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere. While beautiful, the aurora provides relatively little practical light for most activities. However, its presence often correlates with clear weather conditions that offer the best visibility during the polar night. Temperature patterns during the polar night follow predictable trends. The coldest temperatures typically occur not at the sun's departure, but several weeks later, as the Earth continues to radiate away stored heat. January and February often bring the most extreme cold, with temperatures that can drop to -60 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. These extreme temperatures create unique challenges for maintaining warmth and preventing frostbite during any outdoor activity. Wind patterns change during the polar night, as global weather systems adapt to the absence of solar heating in polar regions. Storms can develop rapidly and persist for days, bringing driving snow and dangerous wind chill factors. The combination of extreme cold and high winds creates conditions where exposed skin can freeze in less than a minute, making proper clothing and shelter absolutely essential for survival. The psychological effects of the polar night cannot be overlooked. Humans are biologically adapted to daily cycles of light and darkness, and the extended twilight of the Arctic winter can disrupt sleep patterns, mood, and mental health. Traditional Inuit culture developed numerous practices to maintain psychological well-being during this challenging period, including storytelling, games, music, and social gatherings that provide emotional support and maintain community bonds. Finding the perfect snow for igloo construction requires understanding how wind, temperature, and time create different snow formations across the Arctic landscape. Experienced builders can read the subtle signs that indicate suitable material, distinguishing between dozens of snow types based on texture, density, and structural properties. The ideal snow for construction forms in specific weather conditions. Moderate winds, temperatures between -10 and -30 degrees Fahrenheit, and steady snowfall create the uniform, wind-packed layers that provide the best building material. This snow develops a consistent density and grain structure that allows it to be cut into stable blocks while maintaining excellent insulating properties. Wind direction and strength determine how snow accumulates in different areas. Windward slopes develop hard, dense surfaces, where snow has been compressed by constant wind action. These areas often provide the most suitable snow for construction, as the wind has sorted and packed the snow into uniform layers. Leeward slopes accumulate softer, less dense snow that lacks the structural integrity needed for building. The depth of suitable snow is equally important. Surface layers may be too soft or too hard for construction, while deeper layers often provide the consistent material needed for building. Experienced builders probe snow deposits with their knives to locate layers with the right characteristics. They look for snow that cuts cleanly without crumbling, holds its shape when lifted, and has a uniform texture throughout the depth needed for construction. Testing snow quality involves multiple sensory evaluations. The sound snow makes when walked on provides clues about its density and structure. Soft snow produces a muffled sound, while dense, suitable snow creates a sharper, more resonant tone. The resistance felt when pushing a knife into snow indicates its cutting properties. Good building snow offers moderate resistance and cuts with smooth, even pressure. Visual inspection reveals important characteristics about snow suitability. The surface texture indicates how wind has worked the snow. Small, uniform granules suggest good packing and density. Shiny, crusty surfaces often indicate ice formation that makes snow unsuitable for construction. The way light reflects from snow surfaces provides additional clues about density and structure. Seasonal timing affects snow quality significantly. Early winter snow often lacks the consolidation needed for stable construction. Midwinter snow, after weeks of wind action and temperature cycling, usually provides the best building material. Late winter snow may be too hard, or may have developed ice layers that make cutting difficult. Local topography influences snow formation in predictable ways. Valleys and depressions collect wind-blown snow in thick, uniform deposits. Ridges and exposed areas develop hard, thin layers that may not provide enough material for construction. Areas sheltered by rocks or vegetation accumulate softer snow that lacks structural integrity. The selection process requires patience and experience. Builders may test several locations before finding suitable snow. They consider not only current conditions, but also how the chosen location will behave during construction and occupancy. Areas exposed to strong winds may provide good building material, but offer poor protection for the completed shelter. Igloo construction begins with laying out a circular foundation that will determine the entire structure's stability and thermal efficiency. The first ring of blocks establishes the diameter and creates the starting point for the continuous spiral that will rise to form the completed dome. This initial work requires precision, as errors in the foundation will compound throughout the construction process. The diameter of the foundation depends on the number of occupants and the intended use of the shelter. A small hunting shelter might measure 6 feet across, providing just enough space for 1 or 2 people and their essential gear. A family igloo typically measures 10 to 12 feet in diameter, offering comfortable space for sleeping, cooking, and storage. Larger structures, used for community gatherings, can exceed 15 feet in diameter and require advanced construction techniques to maintain structural integrity. The first block sets the standard for all subsequent pieces. It must be cut to precise dimensions with square corners and parallel sides. The height typically measures 18 to 24 inches, providing substantial structural strength while remaining manageable for one person to lift and position. The length varies with the intended diameter of the igloo, but most blocks measure between 2 and 3 feet long. Creating the spiral requires careful planning of each block's angle and position. Unlike masonry construction that builds in horizontal layers, igloo construction follows a continuous upward spiral that naturally leans inward as it rises. Each block is shaped to fit precisely against its neighbours, while contributing to the inward lean that will eventually close the dome at the top. The cutting technique determines the quality of each block. The snow knife must slice through the packed snow with smooth, steady strokes that create clean edges without fracturing the material. Rough or uneven cuts weaken the blocks and create gaps that reduce the structure's thermal efficiency. Experienced builders develop a rhythm that produces consistent, high-quality blocks with minimal effort. Shaping each block involves more than simple cutting. The bottom edge must be angled to sit properly on the previous course, while the top edge requires shaping to receive the next block in the spiral. The sides need slight adjustments to ensure tight joints that prevent air infiltration. This three-dimensional puzzle requires spatial visualization skills developed through years of practice. The inward lean begins with the first course of blocks. Each piece is placed with a slight inward angle that will compound as the spiral rises. The angle must be calculated to ensure the dome closes properly at the top without creating weak points or structural instabilities. Too little lean results in walls that collapse inward, while too much lean causes blocks to slide out of position during construction. Joining blocks requires attention to both structural and thermal considerations. Joints between blocks are filled with loose snow that is packed firmly into any gaps. This creates continuous insulation while bonding adjacent blocks together. The quality of these joints determines both the strength of the structure and its ability to retain heat. The dome shape chosen for igloo construction represents one of the most efficient structural forms found in nature and architecture. This geometry distributes weight evenly across the entire structure, allowing relatively weak snow blocks to support substantial loads when properly arranged. Understanding the physics behind dome construction explains why this shape works so effectively for Arctic shelter. The catenary arch principle governs dome stability. When blocks are arranged in the proper curve, the weight of each piece is transmitted through compression forces to adjacent blocks and ultimately to the foundation. This creates a self-supporting structure where each element strengthens the whole. The curve must follow specific mathematical relationships to ensure proper load distribution and prevent collapse. Compression strength in snow varies with temperature and density, but wind-packed snow can support surprising loads when properly configured. Individual blocks might crumble under point loads, but the same blocks arranged in a dome can support several times their own weight. This strength multiplication occurs because the dome shape converts vertical loads into horizontal compression forces that snow handles much more effectively. The inward lean of successive courses creates the dome's structural integrity. Each ring of blocks leans slightly more inward than the previous ring, following a curve that will eventually close at the top. The angle of lean must be calculated to ensure the dome closes properly while maintaining stability throughout construction. Mathematical principles guide these calculations, though experienced builders often work by instinct developed through years of practice. Thermal efficiency results from the dome's minimal surface area relative to interior volume. A spherical shape contains the maximum volume with the minimum surface area, reducing heat loss through the walls. While igloos are not perfect spheres, they approximate this ideal closely enough to achieve excellent thermal performance. The curved walls also promote air circulation patterns that distribute heat evenly throughout the interior space. Snow's insulating properties improve when incorporated into dome construction. The blocks themselves contain trapped air that provides insulation, but the construction method creates additional thermal barriers. Joints between blocks are filled with loose snow that adds insulation while sealing air gaps. The completed structure forms a continuous thermal envelope that minimizes heat transfer to the outside environment. Structural redundancy protects against local failures. If one block weakens or fails, the dome's geometry redistributes loads to surrounding blocks. This prevents localized problems from causing catastrophic structural collapse. The redundancy also allows for modifications like doorways and ventilation holes without compromising overall structural integrity. The keystone principle applies to the final blocks that close the dome at the top. The last few pieces must be carefully shaped and fitted to complete the compression arch that gives the structure its strength. The final keystone block locks the entire dome into its final configuration, creating a stable structure that can support additional loads like accumulated snow or equipment storage. The entrance design of an igloo incorporates sophisticated principles of thermodynamics to create a barrier against cold air infiltration while allowing human access. This entrance, typically constructed as a tunnel below the main floor level, exploits the natural behavior of air masses at different temperatures to maintain warmth inside the living space. Cold air possesses greater density than warm air, causing it to sink toward the lowest available level. The entrance tunnel takes advantage of this principle by providing a depression where cold air collects and remains trapped, preventing it from flowing into the main living area. This natural separation creates distinct temperature zones within the shelter, without requiring any mechanical barriers or energy input. The tunnel construction begins during the initial building phase, with blocks arranged to create a passage that slopes downward from the outside before rising into the main dome. The lowest point of this tunnel serves as the cold trap, where the densest, coldest air settles and remains. The upward slope into the living area prevents this cold air from flowing into the warmer interior space. Dimensions of the entrance tunnel balance accessibility with thermal efficiency. The passage must be large enough for humans wearing bulky Arctic clothing to enter and exit comfortably, while remaining small enough to minimize heat loss. Typical tunnels measure about 3 feet wide and 4 feet high, providing adequate clearance while maintaining good thermal performance. The length of the entrance tunnel affects its thermal performance. Longer tunnels provide better insulation by creating more distance between the interior and exterior environments. However, excessively long tunnels become difficult to construct and navigate. Most effective designs create tunnels 8 to 12 feet long, providing excellent thermal protection while remaining practical for daily use. Multiple entrance designs serve different purposes and conditions. Simple tunnels work well for temporary shelters used for short periods. More elaborate entrances with multiple chambers and storage alcoves suit permanent winter homes. Some designs include separate cold storage areas, where food can be kept frozen without requiring space in the main living area. Air circulation through the entrance follows predictable patterns based on temperature differences and air density. Warm air from the interior tends to rise and escape through ventilation holes near the top of the dome, while cold replacement air enters through the tunnel and settles in the cold trap. This circulation provides fresh air for breathing while maintaining thermal separation between warm and cold zones. The entrance floor often incorporates additional insulation to prevent heat conduction to the ground. Layers of brush, hide, or other insulating materials create a barrier between human bodies and the cold snow surface. This insulation becomes especially important in the entrance area, where people must crawl or walk on the floor surface during entry and exit. Snow block arrangement around the entrance requires careful attention to structural integrity. The tunnel opening creates a weak point in the dome structure that must be reinforced to prevent collapse. Blocks around the entrance are often shaped more precisely and fitted more carefully to maintain the dome's strength while accommodating the necessary opening. The insulating properties of snow blocks depend primarily on the vast quantities of air trapped within their structure, a feature that transforms what might seem like frozen water into one of the most effective natural insulators known to humankind. When snow is compressed and shaped into blocks by Arctic winds, it typically contains between 90 and 95% air by volume. The ice crystals themselves form only a delicate skeletal framework, just strong enough to hold the mass together while enclosing countless microscopic air chambers. This unique composition produces insulation that rivals, and in some cases even surpasses, modern materials engineered specifically for thermal protection. Air is central to this phenomenon. Unlike solids or metals that allow heat to flow readily from warmer regions to colder ones, air conducts heat very poorly. Its low density prevents energy from moving efficiently through molecular conduction. By trapping immense numbers of tiny air pockets within the snow's matrix, Each block becomes a labyrinth of miniature insulation chambers. Heat moving from inside to outside must encounter barrier after barrier, dissipating gradually rather than escaping freely. This principle mirrors the logic behind contemporary insulation methods, whether the foam panels used in construction, the lofted fibers in fiberglass bats, or the down feathers that keep winter coats warm. The structure of wind-packed snow further enhances its insulating ability. Natural snowflakes are delicate and open, with intricate crystal arms, but once subjected to strong winds, those shapes collapse and fracture into smaller fragments. The wind redistributes these fragments into a more uniform, densely packed material, with far smaller voids between particles. The result is snow that is both stronger and more thermally efficient, with evenly distributed air pockets that deliver consistent insulation across each block. This transformation is what makes wind-packed snow the preferred material for igloo construction. It can be carved, lifted, and stacked, while retaining both structural strength and thermal resistance. Block thickness plays a crucial role in determining how well an igloo conserves heat. Thicker walls trap more air and thus slow down heat transfer more effectively. Yet there is a balance to be struck between insulation and practicality. Excessively thick blocks become heavy and cumbersome, complicating construction and limiting the speed with which a shelter can be built, an important factor in survival conditions where daylight is brief and weather can turn dangerous. Most igloos therefore employ blocks ranging from 4 to 8 inches thick. This modest thickness is sufficient to provide insulation values comparable to several inches of modern fiberglass, yet light enough for efficient cutting and placement by hand. Another subtle but important factor is thermal bridging, the process by which heat finds pathways through more conductive parts of a material. In igloos, the ice particles themselves do conduct heat more readily than the trapped air. If the ice framework represented a large proportion of the block, this would compromise insulation, but because the ice makes up only a small fraction of the total volume, barely more than skeletal connections between air pockets, the overall thermal bridging effect remains minimal. The result is a wall that retains warmth almost as efficiently as engineered composites. Construction techniques also influence performance. The joints between blocks, if left unsealed, would allow warm interior air to leak out and cold external air to flow in, creating drafts and undermining the structure's insulating function. Inuit builders therefore took care to fit blocks snugly and to pack loose snow into every seam, creating a continuous and airtight thermal barrier. This attention to detail ensured that even in fierce winds, the igloo maintained its integrity as a protective cocoon of warmth. The effectiveness of this design can be measured by the temperature gradient across the walls. Inside the igloo, where a small oil lamp or the body heat of its occupants provides warmth, the air might rise to just below freezing, comfortably survivable compared to the brutal cold outside. Meanwhile, the outer surface of the same wall may be exposed to ambient temperatures 50 or even 60 degrees colder. That such a dramatic difference exists across only a few inches of material testifies to the remarkable insulating power of snow. Some structures took insulation a step further. In more permanent or communal igloos, Inuit builders occasionally constructed double walls with an intentional air gap between them. This technique mirrors modern building practices such as double-glazed windows or cavity walls in masonry construction. The air gap functions as an additional buffer, trapping even more heat inside while simultaneously allowing moisture to escape, reducing the risk of melting or weakening the structure. Variations in wall thickness were also carefully considered. The lower sections of the dome, which bear the greatest structural load, were often built with thicker blocks to ensure strength and stability. Higher up, where stresses are lower, blocks could be thinner, making them easier to lift and position. This thoughtful variation optimized both safety and comfort. The igloo could support its own weight while maintaining excellent insulation where humans needed it most, at the level of their living and sleeping spaces. Taken together, these principles reveal why the igloo remains one of the most ingenious feats of human adaptation. Snow, often dismissed as little more than frozen precipitation, becomes through skill, knowledge, and experience a building material of extraordinary efficiency. By harnessing its unique structure, the Inuit created shelters that transformed deadly Arctic nights into spaces of warmth and survival, proving that even in the harshest environments, human ingenuity can carve out comfort from the cold. Inside a completed igloo, the simple act of living body heat, breathing, and the gentle warmth of an oil lamp triggers a remarkable transformation of its walls. As warmth radiates through the confined space, it raises the temperature of the innermost snow surface just above freezing. The result is a thin film of liquid water that immediately refreezes, forming a hard, glassy coating over the rough snow. This process, known as glazing, is not accidental but an essential phase of igloo construction, turning fragile snow into a durable and highly efficient thermal barrier. The melting is extremely shallow, penetrating no more than a few millimeters into the wall. This selective effect is what makes glazing so effective. Only the surface softens and refreezes, while the bulk of each snow block remains solid and cold, preserving the structure's integrity. The controlled creation of ice on the inner walls seals countless tiny gaps between snow grains, producing a stronger and smoother surface. Achieving this requires careful management of interior conditions. Too little heat, and the walls remain powdery and porous. Too much heat, and the meltwater seeps deeper, weakening blocks or dripping into the living area. Experienced builders skillfully balance lamp flame intensity and ventilation flow, guiding the shelter through this delicate transition. As the water refreezes, it fuses into a dense layer of ice that adheres firmly to the underlying snow. The once grainy surface, easily worn by touch or crumbling under pressure, becomes smooth and hard. This new glaze delivers two vital benefits: structural strength and thermal performance. Structurally, it strengthens each block by binding loose crystals together into a unified mass. The igloo, once fragile in texture, becomes resilient enough to resist contact from clothing, tools, or daily movement inside. Thermally, the glaze acts as an airtight seal. Where snow alone would allow some air to pass through microscopic pores, the new ice surface closes those pathways, trapping warmth inside and blocking drafts from entering. The improvements extend beyond strength and insulation. The smooth, impermeable glaze manages interior moisture more effectively than untreated snow. Without it, humidity from breathing, cooking, and lamps would seep into the wall, where it might refreeze, expand, and destabilize the structure. With glazing, that moisture remains within the interior air, where it can be safely vented through controlled openings. In this way, the ice surface protects both the walls and the occupants from the long-term effects of condensation and frost buildup. Another advantage comes in the form of light. The glossy, pale surfaces reflect and scatter the soft glow of seal oil lamps throughout the dome, brightening the interior. This reflection minimizes shadowed corners and creates an even, gentle illumination, an important comfort during the endless nights of Arctic winter. The transformation is not just practical but aesthetic, turning the igloo's interior into a luminous, almost serene living space. The glazing process, however, is not a one-time event. Conditions inside the igloo change daily with temperature, activity, and occupancy. If the lamp burns too hot or too long, the glaze may melt unevenly. If ventilation is inadequate, condensation may build along certain areas. Skilled occupants learn to read these subtle changes and adjust accordingly, trimming lamp wicks, shifting air vents, or smoothing surfaces with fresh snow to preserve balance. The ongoing maintenance of the glaze was as important as its initial formation, ensuring that the igloo retained its strength and insulation throughout weeks of use. What begins as fragile snow, shaped by knives and hands into blocks, thus undergoes a transformation guided by human presence and elemental physics. Through melting and refreezing, a soft material becomes hard, a porous wall becomes sealed, and a temporary shelter becomes a true home. This process illustrates the ingenuity of Inuit survival, harnessing not only natural materials but also natural processes, heat, cold, water, and ice, to create a shelter that could withstand one of the harshest environments on Earth. The soapstone lamp, or quolik, was the very heart of the igloo, providing both heat and light during the endless darkness of Arctic winter. Simple in appearance, yet remarkably sophisticated in function, this device burned rendered animal blubber with such efficiency that it sustained entire households for months on end. Its steady glow and gentle warmth created a sense of stability in an otherwise unforgiving environment, while its operation demanded skill, discipline, and knowledge passed carefully down through generations. The choice of soapstone was not accidental. Inuit craftspeople recognized its unique properties, soft enough to carve using simple bone or antler tools, yet durable enough to withstand repeated heating and cooling without cracking. Once shaped into shallow crescent or oval bowls, soapstone exhibited another invaluable quality. It absorbed heat slowly and released it gradually, stabilizing the flame. This thermal buffering reduced flicker, minimized smoke, and made the lamp an enduringly reliable heat source in conditions where inconsistency could mean danger. Design played a crucial role in the quolik's success. The shallow, crescent-shaped bowl held a layer of blubber oil spread thin across its surface. Along the inner rim, a strip of wick material, often Arctic moss or cotton grass collected during the brief summer, was carefully positioned. This allowed the flame to draw oil steadily while providing room for constant adjustment. The wide, curved edge gave space for trimming wicks, replenishing fuel, and controlling the flame's size, while the open crescent form concentrated heat toward the center of the living space. Fuel preparation itself was a vital skill. Fresh blubber, harvested from seals, whales, or occasionally fish, had to be rendered into clean-burning oil. Hunters and families would cut the blubber into small pieces and warm it slowly, either with body heat or gentle fire, until clear oil separated from the tissue. This oil, once poured into the lamp, provided hours of steady flame. Seal oil was the most common, valued for its clean burn and reliable heat output. Whale oil, rare and precious, produced even more efficient heat and light, reserved for important gatherings or desperate times. Fish oils could serve as substitutes but required careful tending, as they produced more smoke and unpredictable flames. The wick, though small, was critical to performance. Materials like moss and cotton grass absorbed oil efficiently while burning at a manageable rate. Preparing the wick demanded precision. Too much wick produced a smoky, wasteful blaze that filled the igloo with fumes, while too little generated a weak flame insufficient for warmth or light. Constant trimming was required to maintain the delicate balance. This responsibility often fell to women, who oversaw the lamp's operation with practiced skill, ensuring not just warmth and light, but also the survival of the household. Managing the flame was an ongoing task. Oil levels had to be monitored constantly, preventing the lamp from burning too hot or sputtering out. Airflow within the igloo influenced combustion. Too little ventilation, and the flame would smoke. Too much, and the precious warmth would be lost. By adjusting small ventilation holes in the igloo walls, families could maintain the balance between safety and comfort. The quolik, therefore, was not a passive device but a living system, one that required continual observation and subtle control. The heat it produced shaped daily life. Positioned carefully within the igloo, the lamp provided direct warmth to sleeping areas and working spaces, its heat radiating outward to soften frozen clothing or thaw supplies. The glow illuminated the interior, its light reflecting off the glazed ice walls to brighten the space evenly. This soft, ambient lighting reduced shadows and created an atmosphere that was both functional and calming. a vital psychological comfort during the long polar night. Yet, with its benefits came risks. Fire safety was paramount. A knocked-over lamp could ignite clothing, bedding, or supplies, leading to disaster in the closed confines of an igloo. Carbon monoxide was another danger. While blubber oil burned cleanly when managed correctly, incomplete combustion could produce deadly gases. Adequate ventilation was essential, a reminder that every aspect of lamp operation demanded attention and skill. Maintenance was part of daily routine. The stone bowl required regular cleaning to remove residue that could disrupt burning efficiency. Wicks needed frequent replacement, and finding suitable materials could be difficult in winter when plant matter was scarce. Fuel stores had to be rationed carefully, balancing immediate warmth with long-term survival. Families often lived by the rhythm of the lamp, tending it, feeding it, and depending on it for the simplest of human needs. In the end, the Quiliku was far more than a lamp. It was the symbolic hearth of Inuit life, a center of warmth, nourishment, light, and community. Around its glow, families gathered, meals were prepared, and stories were told. It embodied the resourcefulness of a people who learned to transform the most limited materials, stone, moss, oil, into a device that safeguarded life in the harshest of landscapes. Its flame, fragile yet enduring, represented not just survival, but the resilience and ingenuity of Arctic culture itself. The sleeping platform inside an igloo demonstrates an elegant understanding of physics and comfort in extreme conditions. By harnessing the natural behavior of warm air, Inuit builders created a resting place that lifted sleepers out of the coldest zone of the shelter and into a band of comfortable warmth. Rather than lying directly on the icy floor, families rested on elevated platforms built from snow and insulated with natural materials, ensuring that even in temperatures plunging far below zero, sleep remained possible and even restorative. The principle is simple yet powerful. Warm air rises because it is lighter than cold air. Inside the curved dome of the igloo, heat from the soapstone lamp, combined with the natural warmth of human bodies, drifts upward. The very top of the dome becomes the hottest point, while the floor remains chilly. Positioning the sleeping area at an intermediate height takes advantage of this temperature gradient high enough to capture rising warmth, yet low enough to avoid the stifling air at the dome's peak. This balance creates a natural thermal zone perfectly suited for rest. Constructing the platform required both labor and foresight. Builders typically carved it directly from the igloo's packed snow floor, or built it up with additional snow blocks and loose snow packed firmly in place. Rising 12 to 18 inches above the main floor, the platform provided a stable foundation while creating a thermal step between the colder ground level and the warmer mid-level air. Its dimensions were carefully calculated, tall enough to make a difference in comfort, but low enough to preserve headroom for sitting, stretching, and sleeping beneath the dome. Insulation was a critical element. Even when lifted into warmer air, direct contact with frozen snow would quickly draw heat away from the human body, leaving sleepers chilled. To prevent this, the platform was lined with insulating materials collected during the brief summer season. Arctic willow branches, dried grasses, heather, and moss created a fibrous base layer that trapped air and slowed heat loss. Over this foundation, families spread animal hides, often caribou, prized for their hollow insulating hairs which provided warmth, softness, and durability. The combination of plant matter and hides turned the snow platform into a true bed, capable of retaining body heat through long, frigid nights. The arrangement of platforms also reflected the rhythms of daily life. Different levels served different purposes. The lowest level, closest to the entrance tunnel where cold air settled, often functioned as a working area for cooking, tool repair, and food preparation, places where activity generated enough warmth to offset the chill. The intermediate level served as the primary sleeping and resting zone, comfortably warmed by air currents. In larger or more permanent igloos, storage niches could occupy the higher reaches, where the warmest air helped prevent freezing of equipment or delicate supplies. Size and shape varied depending on the family. An individual platform might measure just 2 feet wide and 6 feet long enough for one person and their bedding. In family shelters, platforms could stretch across most of the igloo's interior, allowing several people to sleep side by side beneath shared furs. This communal arrangement conserved both space and warmth, as body heat radiated between occupants, creating a shared thermal blanket. The junction between the platform and the igloo wall demanded special care. If left poorly sealed, cold air could infiltrate through tiny cracks, creating uncomfortable drafts and undermining the structure's insulation. Builders packed snow firmly into these edges, reinforcing the seams with extra blocks to eliminate weak points. This not only preserved warmth, but also ensured that the weight of sleepers would not cause the platform to settle unevenly. Surface preparation was another important step. The snow base was trimmed smooth, packed tightly, and often left to freeze solid before bedding was added. This created a stable, level foundation that would not shift under use. Sharp edges or irregularities were carefully removed to protect valuable hides from tearing and to guarantee comfort for sleepers. In some cases, the surface was even slightly contoured to allow melted moisture to run off rather than pool beneath bedding. Moisture management was essential. Human respiration and body heat inevitably produced condensation, which could collect on cold surfaces and cause dampness. To counter this, builders incorporated subtle slopes or channels into the platform design, guiding water away from sleeping areas and toward drainage points near the entrance. Such careful planning prevented bedding from becoming wet and ensured that the sleeping platform remained dry and comfortable across days or weeks of occupation. The igloo sleeping platform, then, was far more than a simple raised bed. It represented the culmination of practical physics, careful construction, and accumulated cultural knowledge. By manipulating the natural behavior of warm air, by insulating themselves with gathered materials, and by designing for both strength and moisture control, the Inuit transformed a floor of snow into a haven of comfort. Within the glow of the lamp and beneath layers of fur, families could find true rest even as the Arctic night raged with lethal cold just beyond their walls. The remarkable insulating properties of caribou fur derive from the unique structure of individual hair shafts, each containing a hollow core filled with air. This microscopic design, developed over countless generations of evolution, allows caribou to thrive in the unforgiving Arctic, where temperatures can plummet well below -70 degrees Fahrenheit, and winds scour the tundra with unrelenting force. For the Inuit and other northern peoples, this same adaptation provided the single warmest natural insulation available, turning caribou hides into life-preserving garments unmatched by any material humans could fashion on their own. Each hair of the caribou is not a simple solid filament, but a marvel of biological engineering. The outer shell provides durability, shielding the delicate structure within, while the interior is a hollow cavity, making up as much as 60 to 70% of the hair's volume. Every shaft becomes a miniature air chamber, and when multiplied by the thousands upon thousands of hairs covering a single hide, the effect is astonishing. The hide becomes not merely a covering, but a living quilt of insulation, trapping heat while remaining remarkably light. The animal itself benefits from this weightless armor, and human hunters, when wrapping themselves in the same fur, carried with them the warmth of an Arctic-adapted creature. Seasonal changes only add to this sophistication. In the gentler days of summer, caribou shed a coat of shorter, less dense hairs with narrower hollow cores sufficient to protect from cooler nights without trapping too much heat during warmer days. By winter, the transformation is dramatic. The animal grows longer, denser hair with expanded hollow cores, thickening the protective layer into a fortress against deadly cold. For Arctic hunters, this meant that timing was everything. Hides taken in late autumn or early winter yielded the most prized fur, dense and insulating, perfectly adapted for use in parkas, boots, and bedding. The science mirrors the principles of igloo construction. Just as snow insulates by trapping air, so too does caribou fur rely on air's poor ability to conduct heat. Within each hollow shaft are thousands of tiny thermal barriers, creating layer upon layer of resistance against the loss of body warmth. A single square inch of prime winter hide can hold several thousand hairs, and thus several thousand air pockets, forming a nearly impenetrable wall against Arctic winds. Even if some hairs break, shift, or mat with use, the redundancy of this natural system ensures that warmth remains preserved. The structure of the hide itself compounds this effect. Long guard hairs extend above the shorter, denser underfur, forming a two-tiered system. The guard hairs act as armor, shedding moisture, deflecting icy winds, and preventing snow from clinging to the body. Beneath this surface, the shorter underfur creates the true insulating blanket, dense with hollow cores that lock in warmth. Together, these layers form one of the most efficient natural clothing systems on Earth, simultaneously weather-resistant and heat-preserving. Turning hides into wearable protection required immense knowledge and careful skill. Processing was as much an art as a survival practice. The hide had to be scraped clean without disturbing the hair roots, preserving the insulating structure. Tools and methods were refined over generations, ensuring that each garment retained maximum warmth. Improper handling could ruin a hide, causing hair to slip and insulation to fail. A costly mistake in a land where every piece of clothing could mean the difference between survival and death. Once transformed into garments, the orientation of the fur was no trivial matter. Fur worn with hairs facing outward provided maximum resistance to wind and moisture. In other cases, hides were inverted, with fur against the skin, allowing the dense underlayer to trap heat directly against the body. Traditional Inuit parkas often combined these approaches, layering furs in ways that exploited both directional qualities. The result was clothing that not only kept individuals alive, but kept them warm enough to function, to hunt, and to thrive in conditions that would disable even the hardiest outsider. Moisture, however, always remained the greatest threat. Wet fur collapses under its own weight, as water infiltrates the hollow cores and strips away insulating power. The Inuit developed strategies to protect fur garments from snowmelt and sea spray, while ensuring that body moisture could escape through careful garment construction. After exposure, furs were meticulously dried, brushed, and aired out, a daily ritual that preserved their integrity. Neglect could mean irreversible damage, as hollow hairs once saturated often failed to recover their full insulation. Maintenance became a constant responsibility. Ice crystals, smoke residue, and salt had to be carefully removed. Garments were dried by firelight, smoked to repel insects, and stored to prevent crushing or matting. A well-cared-for parka could last many years, but a neglected one might fail within a single season. For Arctic families, fur was more than clothing. It was a carefully maintained technology, passed down, repaired, and treasured. In this way, caribou fur represented not only a natural wonder, but also a cultural foundation. It was the material that allowed entire societies to build lives in regions that would otherwise be uninhabitable. From parkas and mittens to sleeping robes and boot linings, every piece of fur carried the warmth of countless tiny air chambers, a silent army of hollow hairs shielding their wearers from the deadliest cold. When combined with the ingenuity of Inuit shelter design, such as raised sleeping platforms in igloos, the result was a complete system of survival, harmonizing natural adaptations with human innovation. Even today, no synthetic fiber fully rivals the insulating power of caribou hide. Scientists study it as a model of lightweight, hollow-core insulation, and modern cold-weather gear often mimics its principles. Yet for millennia, without laboratories or factories, Arctic peoples had already mastered it. Wrapped in caribou, They walked out into negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit winds, not as victims of their environment, but as partners in its harsh beauty, armed with the finest warmth nature could provide. Inuit clothing systems represent a pinnacle of Arctic survival technology, employing sophisticated layering techniques that create personal microclimates of warmth around the human body. These systems are not merely garments, they are carefully engineered solutions designed to maintain life and comfort in temperatures that can drop well below negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The traditional approach relies on wearing two complete fur garments simultaneously, with careful attention to fur orientation, garment fit, and functional design that maximizes insulation while preserving the freedom of movement necessary for hunting, traveling, and daily survival activities. The inner layer, known as the atigi, is worn with the fur turned inward against the skin. This orientation allows the soft, dense underfur to trap body-warmed air directly next to the skin, forming a microclimate of heat around the wearer. The hollow cores of caribou hairs create thousands of tiny air pockets within the fur, forming a resilient insulating barrier that dramatically slows heat loss to the external environment. At the same time, this inner layer wicks away moisture from sweat and respiration, preventing dampness that could compromise insulation. The atigi must fit snugly enough to retain warm air while remaining loose enough to avoid restricting circulation or movement, striking a delicate balance between efficiency and comfort. The outer layer, worn over the atigi with the fur facing outward, forms a weather-resistant shell. Coarse guard hairs shed snow, ice, and sleet, while deflecting the cutting Arctic wind, preventing cold penetration into the inner insulation layer. The outer garment is typically worn more loosely than the inner layer, creating a buffer of trapped air between the two layers. This airspace adds a critical additional layer of insulation. It warms to body temperature and remains relatively stable, forming a protective envelope that significantly enhances overall thermal efficiency. The thickness of this airspace is carefully optimized too narrow, and insulation is insufficient. Too wide, and convective currents can reduce heat retention. Seam construction is another crucial factor in maintaining warmth. Heat can easily escape through poorly constructed stitching lines, so traditional Inuit techniques involve overlapping fur edges and sewing with sinew thread. When wet, sinew swells, sealing seams against wind and moisture infiltration. Furthermore, multiple seam lines are often offset between the inner and outer layers, preventing thermal bridges from forming and ensuring that body heat remains trapped within the clothing envelope. Moisture management is an ongoing challenge in layered clothing systems, as trapped perspiration or melting snow can drastically reduce insulation. To address this, Inuit garments incorporate ventilation systems with strategic openings at the wrists, waist, and neck. These can be opened or closed to regulate temperature and allow excess moisture to escape, all without compromising the protective barrier against the wind and cold. Proper use of ventilation prevents overheating during physical exertion, while maintaining an optimal microclimate within the clothing layers. Hood design exemplifies the same principles. The inner hood traps warm air close to the head, while the outer hood blocks wind, snow, and precipitation. Fur trim around the hood opening acts as a miniature windbreak, shielding the face while still allowing for unobstructed breathing. Different pelts are chosen for this trim, depending on their moisture-shedding qualities and their resistance to ice formation from exhaled breath. In combination, the double-layered hood system preserves head warmth, a critical factor, since heat loss from the head can significantly reduce overall body warmth. Sleeves and mittens extend the double-layer approach to hand protection. The inner mittens provide insulation, while the outer mittens serve as a weatherproof barrier and durable shell for handling tools, snow, and ice. Hands present unique challenges for Arctic survival. They must remain warm enough to prevent frostbite while maintaining sufficient dexterity for essential tasks. From using hunting tools to preparing food, layered mitten systems, often with separate liners and protective shells, provide this delicate balance of protection and mobility. Lower body protection is equally sophisticated. Pants and boots are constructed as double-layer systems, providing insulation, wind protection, and flexibility. The junction between upper and lower garments is carefully designed to prevent heat loss while maintaining freedom of movement, whether walking across snowfields, climbing over ice, or crawling into confined shelters like igloos. The materials and layering ensure that warmth is retained where it is most needed, while allowing for natural body movement. These layering systems are not static. They adapt to changing conditions throughout the Arctic winter. During periods of extreme cold, additional layers, fur accessories, or specialized liners may be added to the standard two-layer ensemble. Conversely, during milder weather, or when engaging in high-intensity activity, layers can be removed or ventilation increased to prevent overheating, excessive sweating, or moisture accumulation. Each adjustment is a deliberate choice, informed by experience, environment, and the physical demands of survival in the Arctic landscape. Ultimately, Inuit layered clothing represents a masterful integration of biological insight, material science, and functional design. Each layer, each hair orientation, each airspace is part of a carefully orchestrated system that transforms the frigid, wind-swept Arctic into a manageable, even inhabitable environment. When combined with other survival techniques, such as insulated sleeping platforms in igloos, the strategic use of soapstone lamps, and caribou fur blankets, these clothing systems exemplify the ingenuity, adaptability, and intimate environmental knowledge that have allowed Arctic peoples to thrive for millennia. Arctic footwear represents one of the most critical components of cold weather survival, as the feet are uniquely vulnerable to frostbite, numbness, and circulatory problems in extreme low temperatures. Traditional Inuit boots, known as kamik, reflect centuries of careful observation, experimentation, and refinement. Combining advanced design principles with natural materials to maintain warmth, dryness, and mobility in conditions that would rapidly incapacitate anyone wearing inadequate footwear. In many ways, these boots were not merely protective clothing, they were a sophisticated survival technology, engineered to safeguard the body's extremities against the relentless Arctic cold. Construction of kamik begins with the outer shell, traditionally crafted from sealskin or other marine mammal hides. Sealskin provides remarkable water resistance while remaining supple and flexible, even in temperatures that would render many modern materials brittle and prone to cracking. The hides of bearded seals were particularly prized for soles, as proper preparation and treatment yielded a tough, durable base capable of withstanding abrasion on ice, frozen snow, and rocky terrain. The selection of hides and the tanning process were crucial. Improperly treated skins could fail in midwinter, leaving the wearer exposed to immediate danger. Inside the outer shell, inner liners provide the essential insulation that keeps feet warm. These liners are traditionally made from fur, grass, or other plant fibers that trap air while wicking moisture away from the skin. Arctic cotton grass, harvested during the brief summer months, was commonly woven into sock-like liners. Each fiber creates countless microscopic pockets of air, producing a natural insulating layer that slows heat loss while keeping the feet dry. Moisture management is particularly critical in footwear, as even slight dampness can dramatically reduce insulation effectiveness. Wet feet lose warmth rapidly and are highly susceptible to frostbite, so lining materials were selected not only for insulation, but also for their ability to move moisture away from the skin and allow it to evaporate or drain safely. The use of multiple liner layers adds versatility, allowing wearers to adjust insulation based on activity and environmental conditions. During periods of high physical exertion or milder weather, a single thin liner may suffice, allowing heat to escape and prevent overheating. During sedentary activities or extreme cold, multiple liners can be stacked, producing maximum warmth and a snug fit around the foot. Layering also provides redundancy. If one liner becomes damp or damaged, the remaining layers continue to protect the wearer. Moisture control remains a persistent challenge. While the outer sealskin shell blocks external water and snow, internal perspiration must escape without compromising insulation. Some traditional designs incorporate small ventilation openings that can be adjusted to regulate airflow, releasing trapped moisture while preventing cold air from penetrating. This delicate balance ensures the microclimate inside the boot remains warm and dry, even during hours of exertion in sub-zero conditions. Boot height and leg coverage extend protection to the ankle and lower leg. Tall kamic prevents snow and ice from entering the footwear, while insulating key areas that could otherwise conduct heat away from the foot. The interface between boots and pants or leggings requires careful design, with overlapping garments or fur cuffs to minimize gaps where heat could escape or snow could infiltrate. The sole design of kamic addresses multiple challenges simultaneously. Thick, insulated soles prevent heat loss through direct contact with frozen ground while offering traction on slippery snow and ice. In some designs, cleats, raised ridges, or embedded natural fibers improve grip, allowing the wearer to traverse glaciers, snowfields, and icy tundra safely. Proper insulation through the sole ensures that the feet remain warm even when standing on snow or ice for extended periods. A critical consideration for hunters, travelers, and anyone moving across the Arctic landscape. Sizing and fit are of paramount importance. Boots must strike a careful balance between snugness and circulation. Boots that are too tight restrict blood flow, paradoxically increasing the risk of frostbite, while boots that are too loose allow cold air to infiltrate and reduce thermal efficiency. Traditional fitting methods account for multiple liner layers and ensure that feet remain comfortable and well insulated without sacrificing mobility. Maintenance is a constant necessity for Arctic footwear. Wet boots must be dried carefully, often using body heat or gentle warming techniques, since exposure to direct heat can shrink or crack the leather and sealskin. Salt, ice, and dirt are removed to preserve the material's integrity, prolong its lifespan, and maintain insulating properties. Properly cared for boots can last for years in extreme conditions, while neglected footwear can fail catastrophically in a single harsh winter. Traditional knowledge also includes emergency foot protection techniques for situations when primary footwear is unavailable or damaged. Improvised insulation using grass, fur scraps, moss, or even paper can create temporary warmth. Such techniques are often combined with careful movement and heat retention strategies to prevent frostbite, allowing survival until fully functional footwear can be obtained or repaired. In essence, Arctic footwear represents a culmination of environmental adaptation, material science, and cultural knowledge. Kamic were more than boots. They were a life-preserving technology, protecting the wearer's most vulnerable extremities while enabling mobility, dexterity, and survival in one of the most extreme climates on Earth. Paired with layered clothing systems, insulated sleeping platforms, and caribou fur garments, these boots form a complete ensemble that allowed Inuit and other Arctic peoples to endure winters that would otherwise be lethal, showcasing a level of ingenuity and practicality that remains remarkable even in the modern age. The construction of warm, comfortable sleeping areas inside Arctic shelters requires careful attention to insulation, moisture management, and spatial organization. In the extreme cold of the Arctic, the ground itself can reach temperatures far below freezing, making direct contact not only uncomfortable but life-threatening. Traditional bedding systems therefore employ a carefully layered combination of natural materials that create effective barriers against heat loss, while providing a degree of comfort sufficient for rest during the long, dark Arctic nights. Every element from the foundation layer to the furs used for covers contributes to maintaining a habitable microclimate within the shelter. Ground insulation begins with a foundation layer of Arctic willow branches, driftwood, or similar woody materials. These branches serve multiple purposes. They create a buffer of air between sleeping bodies and the frozen ground, provide structural support for softer bedding materials above, and help prevent pressure points or discomfort that could result from uneven surfaces. The branches are arranged meticulously to avoid sharp ends or protrusions that could puncture hides or cause discomfort during sleep. Their natural flexibility allows them to conform to the irregularities of the terrain, creating a surprisingly comfortable base while retaining air pockets that significantly enhance insulation. In some cases, frozen moisture within fresh willow branches helps bond the foundation into a stable, supportive platform. Above this foundational layer, dried grasses or sedge form the next insulating barrier. Materials such as Arctic cotton grass are especially valued for their ability to trap air, functioning similarly to downfilling in modern bedding. This layer cushions the body, distributes weight evenly across the branch base, and provides additional thermal resistance by slowing heat transfer to the cold ground. The grass layer also helps reduce compression of the underlying branches, preserving the insulating air spaces and ensuring a consistent sleep surface. Hide and fur layers complete the bedding system, providing the highest levels of warmth and comfort. Traditionally, less valuable hides form the first protective layer, safeguarding more prized furs from wear and soiling while adding modest insulation. Successive layers utilize the finest available furs, often prime winter caribou hides selected for their dense underfur, hollow hair structure, and exceptional ability to trap air. The choice of hides balances thermal properties, durability, and tactile comfort. Polar bear fur, while heavier and more difficult to obtain, offers extraordinary warmth and resilience. Muskox fur is also used, prized for its durability and insulation, though its coarser texture can make it less comfortable directly against the skin. The arrangement of bedding within the igloo is carefully considered to optimize warmth and space. Individual sleeping areas are positioned on the warmest sections of raised sleeping platforms, capturing the naturally ascending warm air while keeping sleepers insulated from colder floor areas. Shared bedding arrangements are common, with family members pooling body heat under common covers. Sleep orientation is intentional, often with larger individuals placed strategically to shield smaller family members from drafts or colder pockets of air. These arrangements not only maximize warmth, but also reinforce social bonds and provide psychological comfort during long periods of isolation and darkness. Blankets and covers are layered to manage both warmth and moisture. Heavy caribou hide blankets provide substantial heat retention, but they are often used in combination with lighter furs or hide sheets that can be adjusted according to interior temperature fluctuations throughout the night. Multiple covers allow for fine-tuned regulation of warmth. Layers can be added during the coldest periods or removed during brief warm spells or periods of high body heat. Proper air circulation between layers is essential to prevent moisture buildup, which could compromise insulation and comfort. Attention to head and neck protection is equally critical. Pillows and head supports often consist of rolled furs, additional clothing items, or specially prepared hides, positioned to maintain the head within the warm air layer above the sleeping platform. Some designs incorporate fur-lined hoods or headrests that provide dual functionality, offering both comfort and protection from cold drafts. Maintaining warmth in the head region is essential, as significant heat can be lost from the head during sleep, especially when individuals are lying still for extended periods. Maintenance of bedding is a continuous process during prolonged winter stays. Furs and grasses must be regularly shaken out and aired to prevent matting, ice accumulation, or moisture saturation. Body heat and respiration produce condensation, which can accumulate in bedding if not properly managed. Whenever weather conditions allow, bedding materials are dried, fluffed, and repositioned to restore their insulating properties. This routine care preserves both the effectiveness and longevity of the sleeping system, ensuring that it continues to provide warmth and comfort throughout the long Arctic season. Finally, Shared sleeping arrangements play an important role in both thermal and social dynamics. Family members often sleep in close proximity, allowing body heat to be shared efficiently. The largest individuals may act as natural barriers against drafts, protecting smaller members or children. This strategic positioning not only optimizes warmth but reinforces a sense of community and security within the shelter. During the long polar nights, the warmth, comfort, and social cohesion provided by these traditional sleeping systems are essential to both physical survival and mental well-being. In sum, the Inuit approach to Arctic bedding exemplifies a deep understanding of thermodynamics, material properties, and human comfort in extreme environments. Through carefully layered branches, grasses, and hides, combined with strategic arrangement and ongoing maintenance, these traditional systems create a habitable, warm sanctuary even when temperatures outside plummet to life-threatening extremes. Every element, from foundation to pillow, contributes to a carefully balanced thermal ecosystem, ensuring survival and rest during the harshest conditions on Earth. The practice of communal sleeping in Arctic environments represents a critical intersection of survival strategy, thermal management, and social cohesion within Inuit family structures. In the extreme cold of the Arctic, temperatures can drop to levels that are life-threatening during extended periods of rest. Individual body heat alone, even when insulated by multiple layers of furs and hides, may be insufficient to maintain safe core temperatures. By sharing sleeping spaces and bedding, families create a microclimate of collective warmth, leveraging the combined thermal output of all members to significantly improve survival chances, while simultaneously reinforcing social and emotional bonds that are essential during the long, isolating polar night. Thermal dynamics within communal sleeping arrangements are carefully managed through the strategic positioning of family members according to age, size, and metabolic heat production. Adults generally generate more heat than children, and larger individuals produce proportionally more thermal energy than smaller ones. Optimal arrangements take advantage of these differences. Larger or more metabolically active individuals are placed in positions where their heat can radiate outward, warming others in their immediate vicinity. The smallest children, who have higher surface area to volume ratios and therefore lose heat most rapidly, are often positioned in the center of the sleeping cluster, flanked by adults or older children who act as natural thermal shields. Heat-sharing mechanisms extend beyond the simple transfer of warmth through bedding. Direct skin-to-skin contact, common under layered furs, facilitates highly efficient heat transfer between individuals. Shared breathing further contributes to thermal regulation. As family members exhale, the warm, humid air accumulates under blankets and covers, forming pockets of air that maintain elevated temperatures and humidity levels around the sleepers. This combination of direct and indirect heat transfer creates a microclimate that is far warmer than the surrounding shelter air, illustrating the sophisticated understanding of thermal physics embedded in traditional sleeping practices. The configuration and design of communal bedding are equally crucial. Larger sleeping areas are carefully constructed on raised platforms to capture the warmest air within the shelter. Heavy caribou hide blankets, often sewn together from multiple smaller hides, provide continuous coverage for all occupants, minimizing gaps that would allow heat to escape. Multiple layers of bedding are used strategically. Denser, high-quality furs form the primary insulating layer, while softer or lighter hides provide additional warmth and comfort. Attention is paid to edge management, ensuring that no exposed gaps exist at the perimeter where cold air could infiltrate or warm air could escape. Sleeping positions and arrangements are carefully optimized for both warmth and comfort. Parents frequently position themselves on the outer edges of sleeping clusters, forming a protective barrier that shields children from drafts and cold spots, while the children occupy the center positions, receiving warmth from multiple sides. Older children may be positioned to provide secondary warmth to younger siblings, creating a cascading thermal effect throughout the group. Even subtle adjustments, such as the alignment of legs or arms to maximize surface contact with warm neighbors, can improve collective heat retention. Social and psychological dimensions of communal sleeping are equally significant. Close physical proximity during rest strengthens family bonds, reinforces parental protective roles, and provides a sense of security during periods of extended darkness and environmental stress. Children gain comfort from sleeping near caregivers, while adults derive reassurance from maintaining close oversight of younger members. This combination of physical warmth and emotional security contributes to overall resilience in an environment that is both physically and psychologically demanding. Age-related and health considerations further influence sleeping arrangements. Elderly family members who may have reduced circulation and lower metabolic heat output are positioned where they receive maximal warmth from other sleepers. Very young children, whose rapid heat loss makes them especially vulnerable, are similarly placed in central protected positions. Sick or weakened individuals may receive additional layering or padding to ensure survival, reflecting an acute awareness of individual thermal needs within the communal context. Cultural norms and gender-specific practices intersect with thermal optimization. In some communities, men and women may sleep separately while still sharing warmth indirectly, with children positioned for optimal heat retention. In extreme conditions, these cultural patterns can be temporarily adjusted to prioritize survival, demonstrating the flexibility and adaptability of traditional practices. Social structures, privacy considerations, and cultural norms are carefully maintained even within intimate sleeping arrangements, allowing families to share warmth while preserving personal dignity and social cohesion. Air quality and ventilation management are additional critical factors in shared sleeping areas. Multiple occupants exhaling within enclosed spaces can increase humidity and reduce oxygen levels, potentially compromising comfort and health. Traditional sleeping arrangements take these considerations into account, positioning sleepers relative to air circulation patterns within the shelter and incorporating subtle openings or vents to maintain fresh airflow. This careful management ensures that the microclimate created by communal sleeping remains both warm and breathable throughout the night. Ultimately, communal sleeping in Arctic environments exemplifies a sophisticated integration of physics, biology, and cultural knowledge. By leveraging the combined heat of multiple bodies, using layered bedding systems, and attending to both environmental and social dynamics, Inuit families were able to survive and even thrive under conditions that would otherwise be fatal. This practice illustrates a deep, experiential understanding of thermoregulation, social cohesion, and environmental adaptation, reflecting thousands of years of accumulated wisdom honed in one of the harshest climates on Earth. The traditional Inuit diet provides the high-energy nutrition essential for maintaining body heat and metabolic function in extreme cold environments. This diet, rich in animal fats and proteins, delivers the caloric density necessary to fuel the human body's internal heating system, while supplying essential nutrients unavailable from plant sources in the Arctic environment. Fat provides more than twice the calories per gram compared to carbohydrates or proteins, making it the most efficient fuel for maintaining body temperature in cold conditions. Seal blubber, whale fat, and caribou marrow provide concentrated energy sources that sustain high metabolic rates necessary for Arctic survival. The body metabolizes these fats slowly, providing sustained energy release that maintains stable core body temperatures. Marine mammal oils contain specialized fatty acids adapted for cold water environments. These fats remain liquid at lower temperatures than terrestrial animal fats, making them easier to digest and metabolize in cold conditions. The fatty acid composition also provides essential nutrients for brain function and cellular repair that support overall health during the stress of Arctic survival. Protein requirements increase significantly in cold environments where the body must maintain higher metabolic rates for heat production. Traditional Inuit diets provide complete protein profiles from muscle tissue, organ meats, and other animal sources. These proteins supply amino acids necessary for muscle maintenance, immune function, and cellular repair processes that sustain health during challenging winter conditions. Organ meats provide concentrated sources of essential vitamins and minerals unavailable from muscle tissue alone. Liver contains high concentrations of vitamin A, iron, and B vitamins essential for metabolism and immune function. Kidneys provide vitamin B12 and other nutrients critical for nervous system function. Heart muscle supplies coenzyme Q10 and other compounds that support cardiovascular health during physical stress. Raw consumption preserves heat-sensitive vitamins that would be destroyed by cooking. Vitamin C, essential for preventing scurvy, remains intact in raw meat and organs but degrades rapidly when exposed to heat. Traditional consumption of raw fish, meat, and organs provides adequate vitamin C to prevent deficiency diseases that plagued early European explorers lacking access to fresh foods. Calcium and mineral requirements are met through consumption of whole fish, including bones and specialized foods like fermented fish heads that provide concentrated mineral content. The traditional diet includes various techniques for making bones and cartilage digestible, providing calcium and phosphorus necessary for bone health and metabolic function. Blood consumption provides iron and other minerals while offering a readily digestible source of nutrients. Fresh blood can be consumed immediately after hunting or preserved in various forms for later consumption. The high iron content helps prevent anemia that could compromise the body's ability to transport oxygen and maintain metabolic function in challenging conditions. Seasonal variations in diet reflect the availability of different food sources throughout the Arctic year. Spring and summer hunting provides fresh meat and the opportunity to build fat reserves for winter survival. Fall hunting focuses on obtaining animals with the highest fat content for winter fuel needs. Winter consumption relies heavily on preserved foods and cached supplies gathered during more productive seasons. Digestive adaptations among Arctic populations may include enhanced ability to metabolize high-fat diets and extract maximum nutrition from available food sources. Some research suggests genetic adaptations that improve fat metabolism and vitamin absorption among populations with traditional Arctic diets. These adaptations represent thousands of years of evolutionary pressure for survival in extreme environments. Specific traditional foods provide essential nutrients that prevent deficiency diseases, while supplying the energy needed for Arctic survival. These foods, often consumed raw or minimally processed, deliver vitamins, minerals, and other compounds that sustain health when plant foods are unavailable, and survival depends entirely on animal sources. Muktuk, the skin and attached blubber layer of whales, represents one of the most nutritionally dense foods available in the Arctic. This traditional delicacy provides exceptional concentrations of vitamin C, preventing scurvy even when no plant foods are available. The vitamin C content of fresh muktuk exceeds that of many fruits and vegetables, making it a critical component of Arctic nutrition. The texture and preparation of muktuk requires specific knowledge and techniques passed down through generations. Fresh muktuk is often consumed raw, cut into small pieces that can be chewed thoroughly to extract maximum nutrition. The skin portion provides different nutrients than the blubber layer, and traditional consumption methods ensure both components contribute to nutritional needs. Fermented fish preparations provide probiotics and enhanced nutrient availability through traditional preservation techniques. Fish heads, in particular, are often fermented to break down bones and concentrate minerals while developing beneficial bacteria that support digestive health. These fermented foods provide nutrients that remain stable for extended periods without refrigeration. Aged fish and meat products develop concentrated flavors and altered nutritional profiles through controlled decomposition processes. Traditional aging techniques create foods that remain safe for consumption while developing enhanced nutrient density and unique flavors adapted to Arctic palates. These techniques represent sophisticated food science adapted to Arctic conditions. Raw fish consumption provides complete protein and essential fatty acids while preserving heat-sensitive vitamins. Arctic char, salmon, and other cold-water fish contain specialized fats and proteins adapted to extreme cold environments. The omega-3 fatty acids in these fish support cardiovascular health and brain function while providing efficient energy sources. Liver consumption from various Arctic animals provides concentrated vitamin A, iron, and B vitamins, essential for metabolic function. Polar bear liver, while dangerous to consume in large quantities due to vitamin A toxicity, provides massive doses of nutrients when consumed carefully. Seal and caribou liver provide safer sources of similar nutrients for regular consumption. Bone marrow extraction and consumption provides concentrated fats and minerals, while utilizing parts of animals that might otherwise be wasted. Traditional techniques for extracting marrow from large bones maximize the nutritional value obtained from each hunted animal. Marrow provides easily digestible fats and specialized nutrients that support bone health and metabolic function. Blood-based foods provide iron and other minerals while offering easily digestible protein sources. Blood sausages and similar preparations preserve blood in forms that remain palatable and nutritious for extended periods. The high iron content prevents anemia, while providing amino acids necessary for maintaining muscle mass and metabolic function. Eye and brain consumption provides specialized fats and nutrients concentrated in nervous tissue. These organ meats contain compounds essential for brain function and nervous system health that are unavailable from muscle tissue alone. Traditional preparation methods make these foods palatable while preserving their nutritional benefits. Seasonal timing of food consumption maximizes nutritional benefits and prevents spoilage of valuable resources. Fresh foods are consumed immediately when available, while preservation techniques extend the availability of nutrients throughout the winter months. Understanding optimal timing for consuming different foods prevents waste while ensuring adequate nutrition throughout the survival period. The daily transition from the demanding rhythm of daytime survival tasks to evening rest follows carefully honed patterns that optimize warmth conservation while maintaining the social and psychological cohesion essential for Arctic life. In the extreme polar environment, where daylight may be absent for weeks at a time, establishing predictable evening routines allows families to create consistent microclimates of warmth, regulate daily energy expenditure, and maintain a sense of temporal structure amidst the disorienting effects of the polar night. These routines serve both practical and emotional functions, ensuring that physical needs are met while sustaining the social bonds that are vital for long-term survival. As daylight fades, families retreat into their igloos, where the relatively stable interior temperature allows for productive yet restorative activity. Evening hours are typically devoted to tool maintenance and equipment care, tasks that directly influence survival capabilities. Knives, harpoons, and other cutting implements must be inspected, sharpened, and repaired. Dull or damaged tools could compromise hunting efficiency, food preparation, or construction work the following day. This maintenance work is not merely functional, it provides a structured, purposeful activity that occupies the mind, reinforces responsibility, and maintains morale during long periods of darkness. Clothing inspection and repair constitutes another essential evening activity. In Arctic conditions, even minor damage to garments, small tears in fur clothing, or loose sinew stitches can rapidly escalate into serious threats to thermal protection. Evening repair work allows families to reinforce insulation, mend damaged seams, and prepare garments for the coldest hours of the night. These meticulous practices ensure that clothing systems, from the inner ATG layer to outer fur parkas, remain fully functional, safeguarding against frostbite and hypothermia. The careful handling of furs during repairs also demonstrates respect for the materials and the animals from which they were sourced. reflecting a deep cultural awareness of resource stewardship. Evening routines also revolve around food preparation and cooking, which serve the dual purpose of nourishing the body and warming the shelter. Preparing hot meals generates radiant heat that supplements the warmth of the Kulik lamp, raising core body temperature and creating a cozy microclimate within the igloo. Meals often include stews, dried fish, or boiled meats, carefully portioned and distributed to provide sustained energy throughout the night. Cooking is a communal activity. Family members gather around the lamp, sharing tasks, observing safety practices, and passing on knowledge about food preservation and preparation techniques. This shared labor reinforces intergenerational knowledge transfer while fostering a sense of cooperation and unity. Fuel management for the Kwaliku lamp represents another critical evening responsibility. The Kwaliku burning rendered animal blubber is both the primary source of heat and light, making careful monitoring essential. Evening duties include trimming wicks, adding blubber oil, and adjusting flame intensity to maintain a consistent temperature without excessive smoke or risk of depletion. Proper lamp management ensures warmth through the night and prevents emergencies caused by unexpected heat loss, while also conserving valuable fuel reserves that may be limited for the season. Personal hygiene in the Arctic evening follows adapted practices designed to balance cleanliness with thermal conservation. Activities such as washing hands, face, and other essential areas are performed in ways that minimize exposure to cold air and prevent heat loss. Water is scarce and often near freezing, making judicious use critical. Hygiene routines are closely linked with health maintenance, preventing infections or skin conditions that could impair survival efforts, while also providing a measure of comfort and dignity during long winter months. The preparation of sleeping areas and bedding is a central element of the evening routine. Families arrange layered furs, willow or grass foundations, and insulation materials to optimize warmth retention. Ice and frost accumulation on sleeping platforms or bedding must be removed, insulation layers adjusted for expected overnight temperatures, and covers positioned to reduce heat loss through edges or gaps. Individual sleeping areas are strategically arranged on raised platforms to capture warm air from the lamp and occupants, while shared bedding practices ensure that body heat is distributed efficiently among family members. Proper bedding preparation directly affects not only physical warmth but also sleep quality, influencing energy and alertness the following day. Evening routines also include social interactions, which provide psychological support and maintain family cohesion. Conversation, storytelling, and shared observation of events reinforce social bonds and allow families to process challenges, plan for upcoming tasks, and pass down cultural knowledge. The long hours of darkness make emotional resilience as important as physical resilience, and evening gatherings serve as a vital mechanism for stress relief, mental stimulation, and the maintenance of morale. Children's activities and education are seamlessly integrated into the evening routine. Through games, stories, and practical instruction, children acquire critical survival skills and cultural knowledge, such as tracking, tool use, and environmental awareness. Older children may assist in cooking or clothing repair, learning responsibility through direct participation. Even under confined and challenging conditions, these activities provide entertainment, skill development, and cognitive stimulation, preparing the next generation for adult roles while keeping children engaged during long periods indoors. Adaptation to circadian disruption is another subtle yet crucial aspect of the evening routine. With minimal or no daylight, traditional activity schedules provide temporal anchors that regulate sleep-wake cycles and maintain consistent patterns of energy expenditure. Families often synchronize work, meals, and rest around these shared routines, creating a rhythm that helps regulate body temperature, metabolic activity, and hormonal cycles, despite the absence of natural light cues. In sum, the Arctic evening routine exemplifies an intricate balance of practical survival strategies, social cohesion, and cultural transmission. From tool maintenance and clothing repair to cooking, hygiene, bedding preparation, and education, each activity contributes both directly and indirectly to warmth conservation, energy management, and emotional well-being. These routines ensure that families not only survive but maintain structure, resilience, and connection during the harshest periods of the polar night, illustrating the remarkable sophistication and adaptability of Inuit daily life in extreme environments. Observation and weather assessment help families prepare for the following day's activities and potential weather challenges. Evening weather observation includes monitoring wind patterns, temperature changes, and other environmental factors that affect daily survival tasks. This information guides decisions about travel, hunting, and other activities planned for the following day. The oral tradition of storytelling during Arctic winter nights serves multiple functions beyond simple entertainment, providing cultural education, historical preservation, and psychological support that sustains communities through the challenging months of polar darkness. These stories, passed down through generations, contain practical knowledge, embedded within narrative frameworks that make essential information memorable and engaging. Creation stories and mythological tales establish cultural identity and provide explanations for natural phenomena that Arctic peoples encounter daily. These stories help listeners understand their place in the world while providing frameworks for interpreting challenging environmental conditions. The narrative structure makes complex cultural concepts accessible to children while reinforcing important values and beliefs. Historical accounts preserve knowledge of past survival experiences and successful adaptation strategies. Stories of legendary hunters, successful migrations, and survival during particularly harsh winters provide practical guidance disguised as entertainment. These historical narratives contain detailed information about survival techniques, environmental conditions, and successful strategies that prove valuable during current survival situations. Instructional stories embed practical survival knowledge within engaging narrative frameworks that make technical information easier to remember and understand. Stories about hunting techniques, weather prediction, and environmental hazards provide education while entertaining listeners during long winter nights. The narrative structure helps listeners retain important information that could prove crucial for future survival. Moral and ethical stories reinforce social values and behavioral expectations that maintain community cohesion during stressful survival conditions. These tales emphasize cooperation, sharing, respect for elders, and other values essential for group survival in challenging environments. The story format makes these lessons more palatable and memorable than direct instruction. Psychological support through storytelling provides emotional relief and mental stimulation during the isolation and stress of Arctic winter survival. Engaging stories distract listeners from current hardships, while providing emotional catharsis through narrative resolution. This psychological benefit helps maintain mental health during conditions that could otherwise lead to depression or anxiety. Memory techniques embedded in oral traditions help preserve vast amounts of cultural knowledge without written records. Traditional storytelling methods include repetition, rhythm, and memorable imagery that enhance retention and accurate transmission across generations. These techniques ensure important survival knowledge remains available, even when individuals are lost or separated from their communities. Interactive storytelling methods encourage participation and engagement from all family members, creating shared experiences that strengthen social bonds. Audience participation through responses, questions, and collaborative storytelling elements builds community connections while ensuring everyone remains engaged during long evening hours. This interaction prevents isolation and maintains social cohesion. Seasonal story cycles reflect the changing conditions and activities of Arctic life throughout the year. Different stories are told during different seasons, with winter tales focusing on indoor survival, family relationships, and spiritual preparation for the challenges ahead. This seasonal variation keeps storytelling fresh while providing relevant guidance for current conditions. Educational progression through storytelling introduces increasingly complex concepts as children develop and mature. Simple stories for young children gradually give way to more sophisticated narratives that prepare adolescents and young adults for adult survival responsibilities. This progressive education ensures cultural knowledge transfers effectively across generations. Therapeutic aspects of storytelling provide emotional healing and stress relief during particularly challenging survival periods. Stories that address similar hardships and their resolution help listeners process their own experiences while providing hope and encouragement. The communal aspect of shared storytelling creates emotional support networks that sustain individuals through difficult times. Traditional games and entertainment activities provide essential mental stimulation and social interaction during the long months of Arctic winter confinement. These activities serve multiple purposes beyond simple entertainment, including skill development, cultural education, and psychological support that maintains community morale during challenging survival conditions. String games, known as ajarark, create complex figures using loops of sinew or cord while telling associated stories and teaching cultural knowledge. These games develop manual dexterity and spatial reasoning while providing entertainment that requires minimal materials. The figures often represent animals, hunting scenes, or mythological characters that reinforce cultural education while building fine motor skills. The construction of string figures requires precise finger movements and sequence memory that translate into improved manual skills for other survival tasks. The complexity of advanced figures challenges players while providing progressive skill development, from simple patterns to intricate designs. These skills transfer to other activities requiring precise hand coordination, such as toolmaking and clothing construction. Riddles and word games exercise mental faculties while preserving language skills and cultural knowledge. Traditional riddles often contain practical information about animal behavior, weather patterns, or survival techniques disguised as entertaining puzzles. These mental exercises keep minds sharp during periods of limited intellectual stimulation while preserving important cultural information. Physical games adapted for confined spaces provide exercise and activity during periods when outdoor movement is impossible. These games help maintain physical fitness and circulation while providing entertainment and competition. The limited space of winter shelters requires games that provide physical activity without requiring extensive movement or creating safety hazards. Gambling games using carved dice, marked sticks, or other gaming pieces provide excitement and competition while maintaining social interaction. These games create engaging activities that can continue for hours while building and maintaining relationships between players. The competitive element provides motivation and interest that helps pass time during the longest winter nights. Music and singing activities provide cultural expression and emotional release while maintaining artistic traditions. Traditional songs preserve historical information, cultural values, and artistic heritage, while providing emotional satisfaction and stress relief. Group singing creates shared experiences that strengthen community bonds while providing individual creative expression. Storytelling competitions and collaborative narrative creation engage creativity while preserving and developing oral tradition skills. These activities encourage individual expression while maintaining cultural storytelling traditions. Competitive elements add interest while ensuring stories remain engaging and well-crafted. Dance and movement activities adapted for indoor spaces provide physical exercise and cultural expression while maintaining traditional artistic forms. These activities help maintain physical fitness and circulation while preserving important cultural practices. The rhythmic movement also provides stress relief and emotional expression during challenging survival periods. Craft projects and artistic creation provide productive activities while developing useful skills and creating beautiful objects. Winter craft projects often focus on creating or repairing essential survival equipment while incorporating artistic elements that provide aesthetic satisfaction. These activities produce useful results while providing creative expression and skill development. Teaching games that transfer survival skills to children through playful activities ensure essential knowledge passes to future generations while providing engaging entertainment. These educational games make learning enjoyable while ensuring children develop the skills they will need for adult survival responsibilities. The game format makes skill development more appealing and memorable than formal instruction. The profound quiet of the Arctic winter creates a unique acoustic environment that becomes an integral part of the survival experience. This silence, deeper than anything experienced in temperate climates, affects both practical survival activities and psychological well-being during the months of polar night confinement. The absence of most natural sounds in extreme cold creates an acoustic environment where small sounds become magnified and significant. The normal background noise of insects, flowing water, and active wildlife disappears in Arctic winter, leaving only the sounds of wind, shifting ice, and occasional animal calls. This acoustic emptiness makes every human-created sound more noticeable and potentially more significant for safety and communication. Sound transmission changes dramatically in extreme cold as air density increases and atmospheric conditions affect how sounds travel. Voices may carry farther in still, cold air, while certain frequencies may be absorbed or distorted differently than in warmer conditions. Understanding these acoustic changes helps with communication and safety during outdoor activities in extreme cold. Inside the igloo, the snow walls absorb and muffle external sounds while creating an intimate acoustic environment for family activities. The sound absorption properties of snow create a quiet interior space where conversation, storytelling, and other social activities can occur without interference from outside noise. This acoustic isolation helps create the psychological sense of safety and comfort necessary for rest and relaxation. The rhythmic sounds of daily survival activities create reassuring patterns that help maintain psychological stability during stressful survival conditions. The regular sounds of lamp tending, food preparation, and maintenance activities provide familiar auditory cues that reinforce security and normalcy. These routine sounds help establish daily rhythms that support mental health during the disrupted cycles of polar night. Breathing sounds and heartbeats become more noticeable in the profound quiet of Arctic nights, creating intimate awareness of life processes that can be both comforting and concerning. The amplified sounds of respiration and circulation provide immediate feedback about physical condition, while creating a constant reminder of the life-sustaining activities occurring within the warm shelter. Wind sounds outside the shelter provide important information about weather conditions and potential dangers, while creating a contrast with the security of the interior space. The sound of wind against the igloo walls reassures occupants of their shelter's protection, while providing information about changing weather conditions that might affect future activities. Ice sounds from shifting sea ice, thermal expansion, and other environmental factors provide important safety information while creating the natural soundtrack of Arctic winter. These sounds help experienced Arctic residents assess ice conditions, temperature changes, and potential environmental hazards. Learning to interpret these sounds correctly becomes an important survival skill. The acoustic properties of different materials affect how sounds are transmitted and perceived within survival shelters. Snow, ice, and various shelter materials absorb, reflect, or transmit sounds differently, affecting communication and environmental awareness. Understanding these acoustic properties helps optimize shelter design and daily activities for both safety and comfort. Intentional sound creation through music, singing, and other activities helps maintain psychological well-being while providing cultural expression and social bonding. The deliberate creation of pleasant sounds helps offset the psychological effects of prolonged quiet, while maintaining cultural traditions and providing emotional satisfaction. The psychological effects of profound silence can include both positive relaxation responses and negative anxiety reactions, depending on individual temperament and cultural background. Traditional Arctic cultures develop positive associations with quiet environments while learning to use silence as a tool for meditation, reflection, and spiritual practice. Understanding and adapting to silence becomes an important component of psychological survival. Air quality management within enclosed Arctic shelters requires careful attention to ventilation, combustion products, and humidity control while maintaining thermal efficiency essential for survival. The balance between fresh air supply and heat conservation determines both safety and comfort for shelter occupants during extended winter occupancy. Oxygen consumption by humans and combustion devices reduces air quality in sealed shelters unless adequate ventilation provides fresh air replacement. Each person consumes oxygen while producing carbon dioxide, and burning blubber oil also consumes oxygen while producing combustion products. Adequate ventilation prevents oxygen depletion while removing harmful gases that could accumulate to dangerous levels in enclosed spaces. Ventilation holes near the top of the igloo dome allow heated air to escape, while drawing fresh air through the entrance tunnel. This natural circulation pattern removes stale air while minimizing heat loss through the ventilation system. The size and positioning of ventilation holes must be carefully balanced to provide adequate air exchange without creating excessive heat loss that could make the shelter uninhabitable. Carbon dioxide buildup presents a serious safety concern in sealed shelters where multiple people breathe in confined spaces. Elevated carbon dioxide levels cause drowsiness, headaches, and impaired judgment that could prove dangerous during survival situations. Proper ventilation prevents carbon dioxide accumulation while maintaining oxygen levels necessary for alertness and good decision-making. Humidity control prevents condensation problems that could damage shelter integrity and create uncomfortable living conditions. Human breathing and cooking activities produce water vapor that can condense on cold surfaces and create ice buildup. Controlled ventilation removes excess humidity while preventing the ice formation that could weaken shelter walls or create dripping problems. Combustion product management ensures that gases from burning blubber oil do not accumulate to harmful levels within the shelter. While properly burning blubber oil produces minimal smoke, incomplete combustion can create carbon monoxide and other dangerous gases. Adequate ventilation removes these products while maintaining the combustion air supply necessary for clean burning. Air circulation patterns within the igloo follow predictable flows based on temperature differences and ventilation design. Warm air rises toward the ventilation hole while cool air enters through the tunnel entrance. Understanding these circulation patterns helps occupants position themselves and their activities to take advantage of fresh air while avoiding drafts that could cause discomfort. Seasonal adjustments to ventilation accommodate changing weather conditions and shelter usage patterns. During extreme cold periods, ventilation holes might be partially blocked to reduce heat loss while maintaining minimal air exchange. During milder conditions or periods of high occupancy, ventilation might be increased to improve air quality and prevent overheating. Emergency ventilation procedures address situations where normal air circulation becomes blocked or inadequate. Snow accumulation, ice formation, or structural changes can block ventilation holes and create dangerous air quality conditions. Understanding how to clear blockages and restore proper ventilation becomes essential for maintaining safe shelter conditions. Monitoring air quality requires attention to physical symptoms and environmental cues that indicate ventilation problems. Drowsiness, headaches, difficulty concentrating, or unusual fatigue may signal poor air quality that requires immediate attention. Visual cues like excessive condensation or lamp flame behavior can also indicate ventilation problems that need correction. Personal breathing techniques help optimize oxygen utilization while minimizing carbon dioxide production during periods of poor air quality. Controlled breathing patterns can help maintain alertness and physical function when air quality is marginal due to weather conditions or shelter problems. These techniques provide temporary assistance while ventilation problems are corrected.